The silent world Captain Zara Dex pressed her scaled palm against the observation deck's cool surface, watching the small blue planet rotate slowly below her ship. Her emerald eyes, adapted for the harsh light of her homeworld Kepler 442b, studied the swirling white clouds and vast blue oceans with growing curiosity. After 3 standard cycles of deep space exploration for the galactic hegemony, she had catalogued hundreds of worlds. Most were barren rocks or gas giants. Some hosted primitive life. But this one felt different. The planet designated as Sol 3 by the navigation computers appeared to be covered in liquid water and showed clear signs of complex life. Her ship's scanners detected vast forests, diverse ecosystems, and what appeared to be a thriving biosphere. Yet there was something unsettling about the readings that made her crust feathers ripple with unease. "Run another deep scan, Crix," she ordered her navigation officer, a stocky Gorvarian whose 4 arms moved across the control panels with practiced efficiency. His species was known throughout the galaxy for their technical expertise and attention to detail. "Already running, Captain," Crix replied, his gravelly voice carrying a note of confusion. "The results are ... unusual. I'm detecting massive energy. Signatures from the planet's core, but they don't match any known geological processes. The readings suggest artificial structures, but..." He paused, double-checking his instruments. "But there's no evidence of spacefaring technology. No satellites, no orbital installations, no electromagnetic emissions that would indicate advanced civilization." Zara's tail twitched with interest. In her years of exploration, she had learned to trust her instincts. Something about this world didn't add up. The energy readings were too regular, too structured to be natural. Yet the surface showed no signs of the technological development that should accompany such massive power generation. "What about the land masses?" she asked, moving to stand beside Crix at his station. The holographic display showed the planets. 7 major continents, each one roughly similar in size and surprisingly uniform in shape. "Don't they seem ... organized to you?" Crix's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he enhanced the topographical display. "Now that you mention it, Captain, the continental arrangement is statistically improbable. The spacing is too even, the shapes too similar. Most planets show more random geological development." He manipulated the controls, overlaying energy signature data onto the continental map. "And look at this. The major energy sources align perfectly with the continental masses." A chill ran down Zara's spine as she studied the data. Each continent seemed to pulse with its own rhythm, as if they were not land masses at all, but something else entirely, something that was breathing. "Communications, this is Captain Dex," she called to her bridge crew through the intercom. "Prepare a standard first contact message. We're going to attempt communication with Sol 3. The response came from Lieutenant Yara, her communications officer. "Captain, we've been monitoring all standard frequencies. There's complete radio silence from the planet. No broadcasts, no communication attempts, nothing that would indicate a space-capable civilization." "Send the message anyway," Zara ordered. Standard hegemony protocols. Universal mathematical sequences, followed by peaceful intentions declaration. For the next 6 hours, Zara's ship transmitted every form of communication known to galactic science. Mathematical proofs, prime number sequences, basic physics demonstrations, and artistic patterns that had successfully established contact with dozens of species across the galaxy. The blue planet below continued its slow rotation, beautiful and silent. Not a single response came back. "Captain," Crix said finally, "I'm detecting some kind of atmospheric disturbance. The cloud patterns are changing." He enhanced the visual display, showing massive spiral formations beginning to form over each continent. "These storm systems are forming too quickly to be natural weather patterns." Zara watched in fascination as 7 perfect storm systems developed. Simultaneously, each one centered directly over a continent. The spirals were identical in size and rotation speed, creating a pattern that was undeniably artificial. Someone or something was responding to their presence, but not with words. "Send a message to Hegemony Command," she ordered. "Priority Alpha classification. We've discovered a world with signs of advanced technology, but no apparent civilization. Requesting instructions." The response came back within 2 standard hours, faster than usual for deep space communications. The message was brief and carried. The authority of the High Council itself, Sol 3 designated for resource evaluation. Maintain observation position. Conquest fleet en route. Zara's blood ran cold. The Hegemony's standard procedure for unresponsive worlds with valuable resources was swift and brutal. They would arrive with overwhelming force, establish orbital control, and strip the planet of anything useful. Any native populations that couldn't be enslaved would be eliminated. Looking down at the beautiful blue world with its mysterious energy signatures and perfectly spaced continents, Zara felt a growing sense of dread. Something told her that the Hegemony was making a terrible mistake. 3 standard days later, the conquest fleet arrived. 47 warships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons designed to crack planets open like eggs. Admiral Korath, a battle-scarred veteran of a dozen successful campaigns, took personal command from his flagship, the Inevitable Conquest. "Status report." Korath's voice crackled across the fleet communication channels. His species, the Draconian, Imperium, had built their entire culture around military conquest. They viewed warfare as the highest form of art. "No response to our arrival, Admiral," reported Fleet Captain Voss. "The planet remains silent. No defensive installations detected. No military responses. Scans confirm a primitive biosphere with no apparent space capability." "Excellent," Korath replied. "Begin orbital bombardment of major population centers. We'll establish control zones, can begin resource extraction immediately." But as the fleet moved into attack formation, something extraordinary began to happen. On the planet below, the 7 storm systems that had been slowly spinning above each continent suddenly accelerated, their winds reaching impossible speeds. The ocean surfaces began to churn and bubble as if something massive was rising from the depths. "Admiral!" Captain Voss's voice carried a note of alarm. "I'm detecting massive seismic activity across all continents. It's like the entire planetary crust is shifting simultaneously." Korath studied his tactical displays with growing concern. The energy readings from the planet's core had increased by several orders of magnitude. More disturbing, his ship's gravitational sensors were detecting mass movements on a scale that defied explanation. "What's the status of those continental masses?" he demanded. "That's just it, Admiral," Voss replied, his voice shaking. "They're not continental masses. They're moving, rising. All 7 of them are coming up out of the oceans." Through the observation windows of ships across the fleet, hundreds of alien warriors watched in stunned silence as the impossible unfolded before them. What they had mistaken for continents were revealed to be something else entirely. Something that had been sleeping beneath the waves for millennia, waiting for the right moment to awaken. The first to break the surface was the largest mass, roughly the size of Australia. Water cascaded from its edges in continent-sized waterfalls as it rose majestically from the ocean. Its surface wasn't rock or soil, but gleaming metal and composite materials, unlike anything in the galactic databases. As it cleared the water, massive structures became visible across its surface cities, defensive installations, and what could only be weapon emplacements on a scale that dwarfed entire star systems. By the void, Admiral Korath whispered as his instruments tried to process what they were seeing. "What in the galaxy is that thing?" The answer came not from his sensors, but from an unexpected source. For the first time since their arrival, a communication signal emerged from the planet below. It was transmitted on every frequency simultaneously, in perfect galactic standard, with an accent that suggested the speaker had been practicing the language for a very long time. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran Defense Force, speaking on behalf of the planet Earth and the human species. You have entered our star system with obvious hostile intent. This is your only warning. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The awakening giant's Admiral Korath's mandibles clicked nervously as he processed the impossible sight before him. 7 massive structures, each one larger than most moons, had risen from Earth's oceans and now hung in perfect formation above the planet's surface. They weren't ships in any conventional sense. They were floating continents, each one bristling with technology that made his most advanced dreadnoughts look like primitive toys. "Scan those structures," he ordered, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. "I want to know what we're dealing with." The fleet's combined sensor arrays focused on the nearest floating landmass. The results that came back defied comprehension. The structure was over 6,000 kilometers long and nearly 4,000 kilometers wide. Its mass was comparable to a small moon, yet it floated effortlessly in Earth's atmosphere, held aloft by gravitational manipulation technology that shouldn't have existed. "Admiral," Captain Voss reported, his voice barely above a whisper, "the power readings from just one of those structures exceed the total output of our entire fleet by a factor of 10,000. Korath's tactical display updated as his computers attempted to categorize the weapon systems visible on the floating continent's surface. The analysis made his blood run cold. Each structure mounted enough firepower to reduce his entire fleet to atoms within minutes. More disturbing still, the weapons were clearly designed for space combat massive railguns that could accelerate projectiles to near light speed, energy cannons that could core battleships, and defensive systems that could probably intercept anything his ships could throw at them. The communication channel crackled to life again. "Admiral Korath of the Draconian Imperium," the human woman's voice said calmly. "Yes, we know who you are. We've been monitoring galactic communications for quite some time. We know about the hegemony's expansion policies, their conquest fleets, and their treatment of non-member species." "How do you know my name?" Korath demanded, trying to project strength despite the growing fear in his chest. "We know many things, Admiral," Captain Vasquez replied. "We know that your species believes might makes right. We know that you've conquered 47 worlds in the past century alone. We know that you plan to strip mine our planet and enslave or eliminate our population. What you don't know is why we allowed you to believe we were helpless." As if responding to some unheard signal, the 7 floating continents began to move with grace that belied their massive size. They arranged themselves in a defensive formation around Earth, their weapon systems tracking every ship in Korath's fleet with mechanical precision. "For the past 3,000 years," Vasquez continued, "humanity has been preparing for this moment. We knew that eventually our world would be discovered by a hostile galactic civilization. We could have revealed ourselves earlier, joined your hegemony as a member species, but we studied your methods. We watched you conquer and destroy. We decided that it would be better to remain hidden until we were ready to defend ourselves." "Impossible," Korath snarled. "No species could build structures of that magnitude without us detecting the construction. You're thinking like a spacefaring civilization, Admiral," Vasquez replied with what sounded like amusement. "We didn't build these ships in space. We built them on Earth, as Earth. What you mistook for our continents were actually our fleet, disguised and dormant. We've been living on top of our greatest weapons for millennia, preparing for the day when we might need them." The implications hit Korath like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't just built warships. They had built their entire civilization on top of a planetary defense system. Every human city, every piece of infrastructure, every aspect of their society had been designed around the ultimate goal of protecting their world from galactic conquest. The energy signatures you detected, Vasquez continued, were our fusion cores maintaining themselves in hibernation mode. The regular patterns, the perfect spacing, all part of a defensive network designed to appear natural to casual observation. We've been watching the galaxy for centuries, learning about every species, every technology, every tactic used by conquerors like yourselves. Captain Voss's voice came through Korith's private comm channel. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy buildup across all 7 structures. They're charging weapon systems. Korith looked at his tactical display and felt his worldview crumble. His 47-ship fleet, which had seemed like unstoppable force just hours earlier, was now completely outgunned by a species that supposedly didn't exist in galactic records. Each of the floating continents could probably destroy his entire force single-handedly. What do you want? He asked finally, his voice heavy with defeat. What we've always wanted, Vasquez replied. To be left alone. To live in peace on our world without interference from galactic empires that see us as resources to be exploited. But since that's apparently impossible, we're prepared to make our peace through strength. One of the floating continents moved, closer to Korith's flagship, and through his observation windows, he could see details that made his military training seem inadequate. The structure's surface was covered in cities that stretched to the horizon, their spires reaching up toward space. Millions of humans lived and worked on what was essentially a mobile battle station the size of a continent. The engineering required to make such a thing function was beyond anything the hegemony had ever achieved. Each of these vessels houses approximately 200 million people, Vasquez explained, as if reading his thoughts. They are entirely self-sufficient, capable of interstellar travel, and equipped with enough firepower to reduce entire star systems to rubble. They are also our homes, our cities, our civilization. We don't separate our military from our civilian population, because our entire society is built around the principle of mutual defense. This is insane, Korith muttered. Your entire species lives on weapons platforms? Our entire species lives on mobile worlds that can defend themselves, Vasquez corrected. The distinction is important. We're not a military civilization. Admiral, we're a peaceful people who happen to be very, very well prepared for war. Through his ship's external cameras, Korath watched as smaller craft began launching from the floating continents. They weren't fighters or bombers, but what appeared to be diplomatic vessels. Each one was larger than his flagship and moved with the same impossible grace as their mother ships. You have a choice, Admiral, Vasquez said. You can return to the Hegemony Council and report that Earth is defended by a force beyond their ability to conquer. You can recommend that our system be marked as neutral territory and left alone, or ... She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. You can attempt to carry out your original mission and discover just how thoroughly we've prepared for this scenario. Korith looked at his tactical display one more time. 7 continent-sized warships, each one more powerful than anything in the galactic databases. A human population that had spent 3 millennia preparing for this exact moment. Technology that made his most advanced systems look primitive by comparison. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Korith gave the order to retreat. All ships, he broadcast to his fleet, withdraw to minimum safe distance. Stand. Down all weapon systems. We're leaving. As his ships began their withdrawal, Koroth opened a private channel to Captain Vasquez. This isn't over, he said. The hegemony won't accept this. They'll send a larger fleet. We know, Vasquez replied calmly. "We've been preparing for that possibility as well. But Admiral, before you report back to your superiors, consider this. We've shown you 7 mobile defense platforms. What makes you think these are the only ones we've built?" The communication channel closed, leaving Korath staring at the impossible sight of 7 floating continents as they settled back into Earth's oceans, once again disguising themselves as natural landmasses. Within hours, the storm systems had dissipated, the energy readings had returned to normal, and Earth appeared once again to be nothing more than a quiet, peaceful world orbiting an unremarkable star. But Admiral Korath knew the truth now. Humanity had been hiding in plain sight, patient and prepared, waiting for the moment when they would need to reveal their true nature. They weren't conquerors or warriors in the traditional sense. They were something far more dangerous, a species that had turned their entire civilization into a defensive weapon and then had the discipline to keep it hidden for 3,000 years. As his fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying news that would shake the foundations of galactic politics, Korath couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's emergence would change everything. The galaxy had just discovered that one of its supposedly primitive worlds was actually home to the most advanced defensive civilization ever encountered. The age of easy conquest was over. The time of reckoning had begun. Asterisk.